Hello and welcome back around the Bonfire. It's a joy to have you here midweek in Chicago as we prepare for Philadelphia Union on Saturday. I'm going to take a brief pause because, again, we've got another special guest, and this has been a few months of firsts for us. We had a World Cup winner on the show. We had an MVP on the show. And now for the first time, we have the first person. This is the first time we've had somebody on the show who I know for a fact has done it on a cold and rainy night in Stoke. Danny Higginbotham joining Apple TV MLS match analyst. Danny, thank you for being here and humoring me on the intro there. It's great to have you.
Absolutely. I've if I had a dollar or a pound for every time I've heard that, then I think we'd all be in a good place. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think Stoke wish they could do it on a cold night in Stoke at the moment. So yeah, it's pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you again for making the time. Tim's here as well. Tim, hope the day's treating you well so far, buddy. We're glad to be back.
Hey, just glad to be talking football.
Yeah, there you go. I love the use of football anytime we have higher ups on the show. Otherwise, he does say soccer quite a bit.
There's more FCs in the league now than there is for anything else.
That is
so exactly. I just was rolling with what we said.
Exactly. That's what I go along with. It's FC, and obviously in England, like we say football, it's like over here. Well, what you call American football, I call it NFL. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's football. It's football to me, and it won't change for me. And like you say, there's a lot of teams in MLS with FC. So yeah, I just go along with that.
Yeah. So we're only a few years from MLF. I guess we'll see it one way or the other. No, it is great to be back. It's always fun when we get these calls and we get to talk to some of the folks from Apple. And Tim and I were talking before we found out it was you, Danny, and we said, we've already gotten Steve. I don't know if we'll be lucky enough to get Danny. And there we go. So one of the best pairings
Steve's
that
great.
Apple has.
Steve's great. I make one rule. I never compliment him to his face because I just can't do that. But I'll give him compliments to everyone else that I speak to. But he's very, very good to work with, very easy to work with, and we've done a lot of games together now, and it's really important. I think that you have that chemistry of working with the same person, all the time, which helps so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, you guys are great on the call, so I'm looking forward to listening to that on Saturday.
Absolutely. Let's dive in a little bit on Saturday, right? We've got two teams who, could they be off to worse starts in terms of where they thought they would be coming into the season? Chicago Fire sitting 7th in the East, 1-1-2 at the moment. That's 5 goals and 4 goals against. 2 blown leads, 2 1-0 leads that they blew, that they really could have won. You could see them realistically sitting on 10 points right now. Haven't scored from open play since that very late goal from Robin Lod at Montreal. Just kind of not a worst case scenario start for the Fire, but not much better than you could, not much worse than you could think of. And the other side of the coin, Philadelphia Union, former Supporters Shield winner in 2025, winless and drawless. They've lost all 4 of their games, 7 goals against. Their 1 goal against Atlanta a week ago came in garbage time when the game was already over in a 3-1 loss. It's been far from perfect for Bradley Carnell's side in year 2 after it went about as well as it could through the first 12 months. Danny, we always kind of like to talk a little bit of kind of big picture. And I think when Apple picked this as the Walmart Saturday Showdown, it was not expected to be this, right? This was maybe an exciting playoff rematch. But nonetheless, here we are. How are you kind of viewing this from 30,000 feet in terms of where the teams are standing at the moment?
Do you know what? I have a different view than yourself, I guess, with Chicago. And, I fully expect far more what you're talking about when it comes to the Fire type thing. But I think there's so much potential there. I recently watched the DC game at the weekend, and it seemed to me as though there was a little bit of a struggle in both boxes, whether it be defensively being able to clear the danger, or when they're getting into the final third, just that last pass. There wasn't a huge issue in getting into that final third, and they've got a lot of quality, but it just seemed to be the wrong pass at times. I did them the week before against Columbus when they drew 0-0, and I thought that was a really good performance and could have won it with near enough the last kick of the game. And I think something that obviously I'm sure Greg Berhalter is looking to adjust is this sort of, following on from last season, like the away form, because the away form is better than the home form, and they scored a lot more goals away from home last season than they did at home. And I think that's had an effect on them because they are more of a counter-attacking team, I believe. You look at the players that they've got going for the likes of Bamba, Zinkernagel, Kuipers, Haile Selassie. They've got so much pace going forward, and I think at times at home they can be a little bit frustrated and become too open. But they're things I think can be adjusted with the players that they've got, and I think there's enough quality in there to get a lot more wins and sort of to have a similar season to last year, if not potentially beat that. And then I think Philadelphia Union, Philadelphia Union is a club it's very close to me. I worked there for 2 years before I started doing Apple. And they're a team that have had huge success in bringing young players through, selling players on. But you look at the summer that's just gone, Baribo goes, Wagner goes, Glesnes goes, Ua goes. Not only have you lost 50% of your back four, you've also lost goals, you've lost assists, and you've lost leadership and experience. And I think if you then combine that with being in, obviously, CONCACAF at the moment, it's been a really difficult start for them. And I watched them against Atlanta. And one thing that stood out to me was that the press wasn't there as we saw it, as well as we did last year. And I think that that's something that Bradley Cornell, obviously with new players, with young players, he'll be trying to get that into the players and into the team. But it's very difficult when you don't have so much time on the training field at the moment because they're playing midweeks as well.
Yeah, and I thought that the first game against Club America, the second one is happening as well shortly after we're recording. Yes. So listeners, what happened. We do not. The advantage of living in the future. But I thought they looked pretty good in that one. Like they actually outplayed America for a large stretch, and then didn't get the result. And I think that it's the kind of thing like Kai Wagner, to me at least, seemed like their best chance creator for years. And then to move on from him at the same time as, one of your best goal scorers, like it's just so many pieces moving in one off season. It's just like they've replaced everything and it's worked better. And this is just like, it feels like maybe a bridge too far.
Yeah, and I think it's very, very difficult to disagree with that. I think one of the things is that they've had this system that's worked so well for them for a long time, is in terms of expenditure and how much they spend on players. But I think we're moving into a new era now in MLS, where we're seeing clubs go out and spend 10 million. You're seeing clubs spending 15 million. And, I think what has to happen then, other clubs, they have to look up and they have to take note, because what Philadelphia Union have done over the years has been quite remarkable, whether it be bringing players through the academy or bringing players in at a much cheaper price, sort of finding players where other teams aren't potentially looking, and sort of bringing them to the club, harnessing them and making them better players and then selling them on. It's difficult to see how long you can do that for, especially when, like I say, a vast majority of teams in MLS now, they're not just spending 3 million on a play. They're not just spending 4 million. Teams are going out and, like I previously said, they're spending 8, 12, 15 million dollars. And that's where I think sort of that divide can start to occur. I think Bradley Cornell did an unbelievable job last year. I thought the expectation levels weren't overly high. I'll be the first one to admit, did not expect them to do what they did last year. I even said that to Bradley Cornell. They were phenomenal. But what you've got this year is a group of players that are coming into the second year of MLS. They're not surprised to anybody is in terms of what they bring to the table. I think you lose Kai Wagner. You mentioned that. Philadelphia Union is a team that plays with great width. Well, 50% of your width has just been taken away by one of the best fullbacks in recent history in MLS. Baribo, we've seen his contribution so far at DC United. They're missing that consistent goal scorer. People say Mbekezeli didn't play that much, or played quite a bit, but he had an unbelievable effect off the bench with his pace. Jacob Glesnes, him and Mbekezeli had a wonderful season last year together. Everybody's raving about Mbekezeli, a young player, young South African player, and quite rightly so, they're raving about him. But what made him a better player last year was having the experience of Jacob Glesnes next to him. And now all of a sudden,
it just occurred to me, this is the first time we're seeing, sorry to interrupt, just like that's the two South African center backs against each other, which I think is going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. Yes, without question. I think it's two very, very talented players, and I hope that they're both going to the World Cup. I thought they were. I thought, they've both been very, very good. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you can look at with Philadelphia Union and say, right, okay, going to take a little bit of time. Is the quality there that was there last season? Time will tell with that. But I do find Saturday a very, very fascinating game. I don't think people expected both teams to be where they are. But if anything, I actually think that makes the game more fascinating because it's the counter-attacking ability of Chicago Fire, and they just played in the playoffs last year, and we know what happened there, against a Philadelphia Union team that I think have lost more games at home already this season than they did last season.
Aladoa is the team record signing, but I mean, he's one of the guys you were talking about. Like, I think $4.5 million, which is not the team record signing on that many teams in MLS these days. And I thought he's looked decent, but just the idea that he could walk in and replace what they just lost with Baribo and Ura. I mean, although they did bring another striker, like it just seems like that's not going to be happening anytime soon.
It's very difficult, and I think what you're seeing now are a lot of teams within MLS, when they're buying players that are already in MLS. Because if you come to this league and you sort of not underestimate it, but you don't know what's needed to be successful in this league, it can take you a little bit of time to adapt. The pace of the league is incredible. There's no question about that. People have said to me before, what do you liken it to in terms of pace and intensity wise? I liken it to the Championship in England. It is just non-stop. It is you attack, we attack. That's how it is. I think the travel, I think the different temperatures that you're dealing with. So when you're coming from the outside and you're coming to the club, don't get me wrong, some players can hit the ground running. Other players, it takes a little bit of time. So when you maybe have 2, 3, 4 players maybe trying to adjust at the same time, whilst you've also lost 3 of your best players, then I think it probably stands to reason that it's not going to be this sort of very, very easy evolving stage, because you've got players, like I say, that are getting used to the league. You've also lost leadership. And it so happens is that the players that you've lost are only very, very good players, but they're also leaders within the dressing rooms. They've been at the club for years. And now you've got a group of players that, yes, you've got Bedoya there, who I think is still an outstanding player. His importance off the field is so important. You look at Andre Blake, but then you look around and there's probably, after that, you maybe got 2 or 3 players that have maybe been at the club for playing in the first team for maybe 2, 3 years. So therefore, a lot of the players are new, and it can take time. It definitely can take time, because when you join a new club, it's all about having those leaders around you that can help you, can show you the ropes, and enable you to settle in quicker. But when you've got a number of players that are trying to settle in at the same time, and younger players as well, then that's going to have an effect without doubt early on in the season.
Yeah. So one of the players that's kind of just broken into the first team, Kevin Sullivan, are you surprised we haven't been seeing more of him? I mean, he started against America a week ago. That was his first start of the year. I thought he looked really good. It just seems like he's one of the academy kids they should be playing, but maybe he doesn't fit the mold of the way they want to play just with his profile as much. I'm not 100% sure why.
You know what? It's a really interesting question. It's a really interesting question. And from my own experience growing up at a club like Manchester United, and then going to Southampton and seeing Gareth Bale and Theo Walcott come through, and the likes of the Lallanas as well, it's all about the timing. It's about the timing, because there will be so many Philadelphia Union fans. Go on, you've got to play this kid now. You have to play this kid. He's exciting. He has no fear. His naivety is sort of a real positive, which I fully understand, and it is. But I think what you also have to do as a coach or as a manager, you've got to put a player into a team when he has the best chance of thriving. So what I mean by that is, if you go back, and I'm not comparing the two at all, but if you go back to the class of 92 from Manchester United, you had Beckham, you had Giggs was already there, obviously, you had Scholes, you had Butt, you had the Nevilles. Look at the team that they came into. The likes of Brian Robson was there, Mark Hughes was there, Steve Bruce was there, Gary Pallister was there. Those young players were all exceptional players, but they knew when they were out on their field that they were playing with senior players that could not only look after their own game, they could also look after the younger players' game that was coming through. And you've seen that with Philadelphia Union. And obviously, I know that Kevin Sullivan's younger, but you've seen it with Jack McGlynn when he was at the club. You saw it with Quinn Sullivan. You saw it with Nathan Harriel. You saw it with the Aronson brothers. They were given time in the first team, but look at the experienced players that were there at the time that were able to not only hold their own, but also help the younger players. Now, you put Kevin Sullivan into that team. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him start on Saturday. But that's as a neutral. But I think if you're at the club, it's like, okay, well, we have to make sure that this player is going into the best environment to really thrive. Now, he could be one of those players that just goes in. It's like, yeah, I'm absolutely fine at the age that he's at. But more often than not, young players, they need that guidance. And if a team is struggling for confidence, then that means the senior players that ordinarily would help the younger players, they're struggling to keep their head above water, for want of a better word, with their own performances. So therefore, it's difficult for them then to look after the younger players that then come into the team.
I'm kind of curious, and I know we're a little bit of a time crunch, Danny, so kind of last thought as we go here. Looking back through Philadelphia's results, I mean, really, outside of the loss to Atlanta, you're looking at a bunch of 1-0, the 2-1 loss to NYCFC. They only allowed a goal to Club America last week, right? This, normally I think when we hear in the context of young team maybe lacking a little bit of leadership on the field, we think of that as almost a defensive issue. And it seems to be playing out the opposite, where they just can't find the back of the net, save, when they're playing a Trinidadian side, right?
Yeah, without doubt. I think if you look at the structure of the team hasn't changed. It's strong. There's no doubt about it. But what they do is a collective. So they're defending collectively. So yes, you lose Glesnes, you lose Wagner. You're losing the attacking intent of Wagner, who's been incredible attacking wise, was great defensively. But I think it's a defensive unit that is relatively strong. But the problem is because you haven't got Wagner there, because you haven't got Glesnes there, there's probably a little bit more thought process with the players in midfield, which is like, okay, we haven't got these experienced players that have been in MLS for years. So maybe we need to give a little bit of insurance. Maybe we need to give a little bit of extra cover. So instead of maybe having 6 players attacking, you've maybe only got 4 or 5. And we know that the higher you get up the field, the more chance you've got of putting the ball into the back of the net. And also as well, when you look at Philadelphia Union, they attack the sides so well. The 2 fullbacks get forward, they get crossed into the box, and they get numbers into the box. Well, like I say, so much of that has been taken away with Kai Wagner, obviously leaving and going to Birmingham City, and he's doing really well there. And then you have Baribo, who's gone. I thought him and Damiani had a really good understanding, a really good partnership. Mm-hmm. Well, now that's out of the window because Baribo's gone. So all of a sudden it's Damiani. It's like, right, okay, I now have to build a partnership with somebody else. The 2 number 10s last season, I thought Quinn Sullivan was absolutely magnificent until he had an awful injury. And hopefully he's back soon. So then you have a little bit of a variant there. Then Iloski comes in. He does really, really well. But what's happening now is like, okay, well, opposition teams are looking and going, if this is last season when they were doing really well, and especially towards the end of the season, we've got to stop Iloski. We've got to stop Wagner. We've got to stop Baribo. All of a sudden, in that now it's we don't have to stop Baribo. We don't have to stop Wagner. So people may look at Iloski and going, yeah, he's not playing great at the moment. He's now the main danger man for Philadelphia Union. So if you're a manager now and you're looking, right, if we can stop Iloski, we stop a huge percentage of what Philadelphia Union do. Last season, you couldn't say that. If you said, well, if we stop Iloski, we'll be all right. No, you won't. Because you've got Baribo that needs one chance and you've got Wagner that puts incredible balls into the box. So all of a sudden, because teams now can sort of concentrate on Iloski, who wants to be the provider, they can actually specifically magnify on him because there isn't that threat of Wagner coming down the side. There isn't that threat of Baribo needing one touch to finish in the box. So all of a sudden, not only does the pressure then mount on Iloski, but also so does the owners from the opposition, because they will think to themselves, if we can stop Iloski, we're going a long way to stopping Philadelphia Union. And I think that can become a problem in itself as well.
Yeah. No, well said. Yeah, Dan, I know we're tight on time, so I want to make sure you can get out of here. Is there anywhere you'd like to point folks to other than obviously Apple TV on Saturdays to hear you on the call?
No, I think it's great. I'm really enjoying it. Like I say, Steve is a great guy to work with, and
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a really fascinating game. I think you've got one of the best counter-attacking teams in the league, with the pace that they've got going forward against one of the best sort of pressing teams in the league. So one thing I will say, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, it isn't going to be 0-0. So if you want to see some goals, there you go. If you want to see some goals, that's it. That's how I'm selling it. If you want to see some goals, then you can tune in, because you will see plenty of goals in that game, I believe. And if it's 0-0, please don't come back and say, remember what you said.
You'll hear from us if it's 0-0.
I'm sure.
Well, Danny, thank you so much again for being here. Danny Higginbotham, Apple MLS TV match analyst. Be on the call Saturday. Chicago Fire take on Philadelphia Union, along with the friend of the show, Steve Cangelosi. Danny, thank you so much for joining us again. For all the folks out there listening, if you could like, subscribe, give us a follow, all that kind of good stuff. It goes a long way. But thank you so much for joining us around the bonfire. And come on, you men are red.